Our first reading is from Indigenous author and botanist Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. Naming responsibility is often understood as accepting a burden, but in the teachings of my ancestors, responsibilities and gifts are understood as two sides of the same coin. The possession of a gift is coupled with a duty to use it for the benefit of all. A thrush is given the gift of song, and so has a responsibility to greet the day with music, which is in turn received as a gift to us as we watch the sky grow pink with dawn. Salmon have the gift of travel, so they accept the duty of carrying food upriver. The stars were given the gift of sparkle, coupled with the responsibility of guiding us at night. So, when we ask ourselves, what is our responsibility to the earth? We are also asking, what is our gift? Our second reading is from Reverend Galen Gungerich. Gratitude is a sense of feeling a deep connection to ourselves, the people around us, and the natural world. It's a recognition that we are made up of relationships. You know, if you take the physical entities that make up the world and take everything else out and squish them together, you literally would have only a handful of material. Everything else is relationships. So gratitude is the recognition that everything that makes life possible and meaningful to us comes from sources beyond ourselves. And how else could we respond to such a gift other than gratitude? But it also means that we recognize that we owe something back in return to the people and world around us. So I like to say that gratitude is a life of reciprocity with other people and with the natural world.
That's right, amen. When I was around 16 or so, I went through a period of time where I was really irritated by most holidays. As a kid that celebrated both Jewish and Christian holidays, I found that I had plenty of opportunities to be annoyed. Easter, bunnies and eggs and a resurrection I didn't believe in, annoying. Passover, an hours-long Seder in my bubby's basement with weird, cold, slimy gefilte fish, annoying. Halloween, costumes are stupid and scary things are annoying. Being a teenager can be really rough. Thanksgiving, though, was particularly annoying. I hated the idea that I was supposed to be grateful one day a year, on a day when everyone was stressed out about cleaning the house and cooking the turkey. I hated that I had to perform gratitude out loud on a day when I had to wear uncomfortable clothes that did not fit my gender in front of family I did not know. Angsty teenage Laura spent a few years journaling about how focusing on gratitude on one random Thursday in November was performative and weird. And that's before I got to the part about the genocide of Native people, the celebration of murdering racist colonizers, and the whitewashing of history. It is perhaps no surprise that I became a minister. But as much as I laugh now about my teenage self, and as much as I have gotten over my annoyance at most holidays, I continue to have weird feelings about how we think about gratitude. Because my younger self wasn't entirely wrong. Gratitude isn't about manners. It isn't about saying thank you. It isn't about acknowledging what we have necessarily, especially not acknowledging what we have when compared to others. My teenage self, in their hormone-addled brain, knew that I was searching for a deeper kind of gratitude, one that isn't about obligation or politeness, but about connection, about reciprocity. Gratitude is not just a feeling or an annual ritual, but a way of living in relationship with everything that is around us, with people, places, and history. True gratitude, expressed as reciprocity, asks us to respond to the gifts we have received by acting with care, integrity, and courage. Ultimately, living with gratitude means recognizing that we belong to each other and that our lives are changed by that belonging. When separated from relationship, gratitude can become shallow. It becomes a performance instead of a practice, a feeling instead of a way of living. It is a thing we do rather than a thing we are. I read an article this week by Sabrina Meherali, a writer who describes herself as a decolonial designer and researcher and a liberatory futures coach, a job description I kind of want. She asks, what if reciprocity was not about settling a balance, but about tending to relationships across time and space? What if, she asks, we respond to gratitude with reciprocity that is not direct? It's not that I bring you a casserole when your loved one dies because you brought me soup when I was sick. It's not about direct exchange, but about a web of care and an understanding that what we receive in one place informs how we give in another. Reciprocity is not a transaction to be fulfilled, she says. It is an orientation of how we move through the world with care and relational integrity. What if we changed the question? So it was not, what can I give back, but how can I live differently with what I have received? How will I live differently because of what I have received? And that type of gratitude, that type of reciprocity, that doesn't exist in a thank you card. That type of gratitude isn't a casserole or returning a favor. This is gratitude that moves beyond feeling and into a way of being, a way of living, as if we truly belong to one another, belong to the earth, belong to the places, the people who formed us and shaped us. When people ask me where I'm from, I almost always say that I'm from Maryland, because it's where I lived from the age of 4 to the age of 21. But where I'm from, where I was born, is Charlottesville, Virginia. It's where my mom is from, where half of my grandparents are buried. It's where my mom considers home, where we visited sometimes for vacations, where my dad had his large animal veterinary practice. Although I have few memories of living there, Charlottesville is a place to which I have always felt deeply connected. It is home in a way that is deeper than words. It is the place that gave me life in all of its complicated history, and for that reason, it is sacred to me. So in that same deeper than words way, something happened to me in 2017 when the Unite the Right rally was going to be held in Charlottesville. I thought about my grandmother's grave there, and I thought about how much I loved her. I thought about all her books on Robert E. Lee and wondered which side of history she would be on. I thought about the Blue Ridge Mountains that felt like home, the red clay that had stained my toddler knees. And I knew I had to go. Not because it was a home I consciously knew, but because it was a place I was in deep relationship with that was part of me. It was a place that belonged to me as much as I belonged to it, and so I was called to respond to its crisis with courage and with integrity. I felt called to go, not to reclaim it, and not because I thought my presence would change the course of history, but because it felt like it was something that I owed to that place, to my ancestors, and to the future. I went not as a hero, but as someone trying to answer the call of belonging, to answer the question, how will I live differently because of what I have received? How will I live differently with this inheritance of ties to a beautiful, complicated place? I knew I had to stand quite literally on the ground that had shaped me and to claim with my body there that this is what love looks like. This resistance is what love looks like. Gratitude, I realized, isn't always quiet or polite. It isn't the mushy feeling of thanks we name when we say the word gratitude. Standing there in the heat and the fear and the heartbreak, gratitude meant resistance. It was saying, I was given life here, and so I am called to protect life. Because gratitude, at its deepest level, isn't about comfort. It's about connection. It's about remembering that we belong to each other and then acting like it. Gratitude is not a single act or a single day. It is the way we live in response to the truth that we belong to each other, to the people, the places, the histories, and the futures that hold us in their web. Sometimes that belonging will ask something of us in return. Sometimes it will ask us to let go. Sometimes it will ask us to tell the truth about what has been broken. And sometimes it will ask us to simply tend to what we love. But always, it will ask something of us. Because to be grateful is not to rest in what we have. It is to be changed by what we have been given. So as we reflect on gratitude this month, may we practice a gratitude that is alive, a gratitude that breathes, a gratitude that refuses to be performative but insists on being transformative. May we remember that every gift carries a responsibility, and that our response can be as simple as paying attention, as brave as telling the truth, or as tender as showing up. May we live as if we belong to one another, to this earth, to the story that is still being written through us. And may that belonging, that deep and reciprocal gratitude, be both our grounding and our call. Amen.